Most marketers will waste time starting from scratch for every new blog post that they're creating. However, if you have a solid foundation in a content brief, you are far ahead of the game in terms of content that's structured, that's strategic, that's ready for AEO, and can be easily repurposed. In this video, I want to show you the template that I use for creating content briefs that work really well to go from brief to outline and outline to blog posts. And it will be in a structured format, JSON, that you can easily use to repurpose on different platforms, and you can use these ideas in many different ways over time. So let's start with a content brief template. And I want to walk you through the brief that I put together, and then you can just take this to use for your own stuff. And the value of this is that you are now on the same page, whether you're outsourcing this to someone on your team to execute, to an AI, or you're doing it yourself. You are taking the time to think through what you're trying to say, what the different angle is, what the different arguments are, or how you're even going to approach this piece of content at all. And the value is because if you're just regurgitating content that you're researching or finding online, you're not going to be showing up in large language models. And with impressions and clicks going down from the search engine results page, you're essentially going to be falling into oblivion and invisible on the internet. So with a content brief, you're taking just a few minutes to think through your strategic approach to this piece of content, and then you will be far ahead of the game. Now, don't worry, I will show you an AI prompt to make this far faster so you can accelerate the process. But let's just go through at a high level. So first, we're just gonna get what the objective is, that this is going to be the basis for creating an outline where you're having your clear H2s, H3s, and any other thoughts on what you're going to incorporate into the content. Then you're going to have a few ideas. Ultimately, the hook or the premise of the title is going to be critical to actually get that initial click through. Then the one sentence thesis, what is this content going to be about? And then maybe most importantly, the ICP. Who is the ideal customer profile that will be reading this piece of content or viewing this video script? Because remember, this is a content brief for a written post, but this can easily be repurposed into a video, even if you're using a tool like a HeyGen or Synthesia to do an AI avatar. But you want to really focus on the ICP in terms of what the role is, what their goals are, their pains, their challenges. What are you trying to answer and solve with this piece of content that you're going to put out there? And then what is a business outcome? What is the end goal of this? And this will feed into what your call to action is at the end of the post. Now let's think about what the core arguments are. So at a high level, what the setup is, what the shift in the landscape is. So the emerging truth, what the next step is in terms of like what's replacing it, what success is measured by, and then get more specific and tactical. A lot of large language model answers are focused on the how-to or the step-by-step or a template or a guide, something very tactical, and then think through the structure of this. This is almost like the hero's journey where you have the challenge. What is the change in the landscape that's occurring? So maybe you're starting with a data point or a quote, and then shift to what the result is of this. And then what the binary of what good people, what the winners are doing, and then what the what's not working, and then the takeaway from that. The next step in the content brief is you want to think through the tone. So is it a humorous? Is it authoritative? Is it direct? But you want to include these notes here for the style and tone. Again, whether it's AI or somebody else on your team, you want to be very clear upfront on this. And maybe you also do have a brand kit that you're pulling from. So you can create this once and it scales. Then questions to answer. So biggest missed opportunities in the space, surprising ROI based on a recent experiment, how budget shifts, 3 moves to make in the next 90 days, how you drive your team buy-in for this shift. So these are all ways to think about what the questions people might be asking, and then how you can answer that and incorporate that into your post. Then maybe thinking through what the competitors are doing, proof expectations, so data and statistics, this is critical. So if you're thinking about what Google's EAT is, experience, expertise, authority, trust, this is a great way where you're doing this to include maybe a case study for some time when you actually experience this and you delivered the results that you're talking about. That imbues the piece with your own unique perspective, your own unique experience and expertise. Then we're thinking through what would the distribution be? So what channels are you going to be posting this on? So blog, LinkedIn, short form video, email, that's all here. These are kind of like notes, call to action, and then the constraints. So what the length is, what other assets do you want to include? Quick note here, highly recommend not including JavaScript. JavaScript is not something that can be parsed by a large language model. However, if you have a table, for example, that is great, or HTML. And then The next step is the answer engine optimization elements. So we are now we're in the world of this post-AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI mode, where we're creating content for humans, but also for the large language model to actually consume and then feed back to the humans in an AI chat. So it is really important to think through what the answer engine optimization elements are. So I'll go through this really quickly. The TLDR, so in a lot of posts you might see at the very top of the article, what is a too long didn't read? So a few sentences to summarize this. And if you're thinking through why would you want to do this, the value is because it condenses the main takeaways into snippet-ready answers. And ideally, it's comprehensive and is something that answers a question that somebody might be asking a chatbot. So you're having this in, then the URL slug, under 60 characters, really focus on your main keyword there, your heading strategies. A few other important things is a schema. So the JSON linked data. So this is if you're thinking through, for example, your FAQs or your how-tos. This is on the back end. It's not something that the user sees, but it is important for the bots to understand what the content is and extract the information from that page. So now let's show you an example. So I just took all of that I just described and put it into a prompt. And so we can walk through the prompt. It does mirror the content brief that I covered quickly. So at a high level, here are the inputs. So you're giving it a role. And so maybe it helps to walk through the structure of the prompt. So you want to give the role of the chatbot. So this is the equivalent of a system prompt. So you are a B2B content strategist, and your task is to take the following inputs and then create the content brief. So we are just starting with a few basic ideas, and then let's let the LLM do its work in terms of helping us understand and fill in the gaps for the content brief. Then we can go in and reference either our brand guidelines or our case studies or our unique quotes or perspectives, data, to add more unique specificity to the post. But right now we're going to focus on the content brief. For example, we have a few inputs, and the reason why we have the inputs here and a colon, so it's basically the key value. So this is to mimic a JSON. So if you are using a tool like, for example, an AirOps or N8N, you are just having a field, and then this could be a dynamic placeholder. So the topic and then the placeholder could be dynamic, where you're just pulling in the main topic or the primary keyword, and then it's going through and filling in the gaps. But here I've hard-coded it in that the topic, let's just say, is AI marketing, and we're covering vibe marketing. So this notion of using AI tools, different AI tools, large language models, agents, and ultimately, ideally, creating an autonomous AI agent. So what if we were to write a primer piece on what is vibe marketing, and our ICP persona would be a CEO, somebody who wants to learn more about how to use AI, how to do more with fewer resources. And then so we can just go through the prompt here, and you can just copy and paste this prompt and use your own data and inputs. And ideally, you will get a really good output in terms of what a content brief is. So we are going to get some title ideas. We're going to get the one sentence post overview, a few more details on the ICP, some structure in terms of what the ICP is reading, their challenges, their goals, what they want to achieve, and then cover each section. And then we'll get some of the the metadata stuff like the URL slug, people also ask, and then the JSON. And what I have here is I asked for the output in JSON. And so this is the typical JSON structure where it's a key and a value. The key is what the field would be. So imagine that this is basically like a Google Sheet or an Airtable, where we have the column is topic, and then we have a blank, and that would be the row. And then the next column would be primary keyword, next column working titles, next column thesis. And so what we're able to do is create more structured data than if it were just a free-form text-based output. And the value is because it makes it far more scalable, far more repurposable, and it's ultimately structured data. So if you want to make changes in the future, for example, you can just highlight one particular role. You can just highlight the goals, for example, or the pains, and make a change to that particular area because it is structured data. And so that's the value of getting the output in JSON. And if you want to work with a tool like AirOps or N8N, having structured data makes it far easier than having a free-form unstructured data. So that would just be kind of like paragraphs of text. Because when you have paragraphs of text, if you want to get it into a column, it's the large language model will have to go through, replicate that or do another pass at creating it. And what you get there is you get drift from your initial inputs or your initial answer. And then also you're just using up tokens, you're using up cost, whether it's say AirOps tasks or N8N tasks, make.com tasks. So getting the output in JSON is really helpful. And so this was literally, there was no other background except giving it this, this high level role. And then these inputs where I just want to write about what is vibe marketing and AI marketing. And then the output is, as you can see here, it looks a little bit like a big block of text and a lot of text and almost like code. But the value is that you can just use this going forward, where I was saying the content brief is a basis for creating a lot of different outputs, a lot of different types of text that you can just take an idea and replicate it for a different platform. And so we can see here that we have all of the based on the simple inputs that we have a lot more in terms of what the outputs are. So to structure the key points and what the winners do, what the automation is, the impact, all of these things. And then we have a high level of what the outline would be, what the FAQs would be, what the JSON linked data would be. And so this is really great because right now we can take this and feed it into a prompt for a blog outline. And from that blog outline, ideally, we are scanning the search engine results page for the given keyword or search query. We're going to see what the top results are, or we're going to see what the citations are in the large language model output. We're going to put together an outline pulling the best answers, incorporating our own perspectives and data, and then creating the outline from there. And then once we have that structured outline, so we've gone from content brief to structured outline to blog post, we are far more prepared. It's a far more thorough research process, and the output there will be far better. And if we're using AI to bridge that gap between the content outline and the written draft, we've given structured data, we've reviewed it. Human review at every step of the process is critical. And then we are able to ultimately have the AI draft this. Another important point too, and one of the reasons why I like using AirOps for this, is because you can have written rules. You can have these universal rules of don't use terms like in a world where, or in the fast-paced world, or M dashes, rhetorical questions, all of these things we can hard code into our writing rules so that we never experience that in the output from the AI. But those are like the fine-tuned details. Once we're starting with a strong content brief, the research that goes in there, the strong outline, we are setting ourselves up for success, not only for the blog post, but for repurposed content, because we have structured data in this form of JSON. So that's it at a high level. I hope that was helpful because the content brief is so critical. It always has been for content marketers, but I think now that we are using AI and automation, and we want to make sure that we understand, we have a tight grasp on what we're putting into the large language model, and if it follows a certain structure or repeatable structure that we can use, it lends itself to scaling. And I think this is one of the most important things that you can learn as a content engineer or somebody who leverages AI and automation to create high-level proprietary content. So I hope that helps. My name is Gen Furukawa from Supermarketers. If you're interested in learning more about how to actually create a great blog post with AI, make sure to click the link below. Or if you need help with this, make sure to click the link below and book a call with me. Happy to walk through a strategy specifically for your brand. Until then, see you next time. Bye.